You have been taught to pray to God, to ask for blessings from a power that seems distant, outside of yourself. But what if the most misunderstood words of Jesus were never about supplication, but about command? What if they were an instruction, not on how to worship a king on a throne, but on how to awaken the creative power of the kingdom within? For the next few moments, I invite you to set aside everything you believe you know about what is called the law of assumption. We are not here to explore a modern self-help technique. We are here to embark on a journey into the mystical heart of the world's great spiritual traditions. Together, we will decode the sacred verses that reveal this law not as a recent discovery, but as humanity's oldest and most potent spiritual technology. Have you ever felt it? A deep, quiet certainty of a power that lives and breathes within you. A creative potential that feels immense, boundless. And yet, have you also felt the subtle friction, the contradiction, when the rules and dogmas of the world seem to shrink that power, to place it forever outside of your hands? If you have, then know that this feeling is not a mistake. That very contradiction is a sacred doorway. And today, we will walk through it together. When we hear the phrase, the law of assumption, our modern minds often picture its most recent popularizer, the 20th century mystic Neville Goddard. It is presented to us as a powerful, almost psychological tool for manifestation, a method for achieving our desires, for sculpting the raw material of our lives into a more pleasing form. And this, for so many sincere seekers, is where a quiet dissonance begins to echo in the chambers of the heart. The techniques can feel transactional, focused solely on acquiring things in the outer world. A question arises, whispered from a deeper place within us. Is this spiritual? Or is it merely a sophisticated form of wishful thinking? Does this power serve the soul, or does it only serve the ever-hungry ego? This conflict can make the entire concept feel hollow, disconnected from the profound sacred traditions that have nourished humanity for millennia. But what if this modern label is simply a new mask on a very, very ancient face? I invite you to consider an idea, a metaphor that will guide our entire journey today. Imagine all of human wisdom, every religion, every spiritual path, every philosophical school as a vast and magnificent tapestry woven over thousands of years. From a distance, it appears to be made of countless different colors and patterns. But if you look closely, with patient eyes, you can begin to trace a single luminous strand of gold that runs through the entire design. This golden thread appears in the sun-drenched sands of ancient Egypt, in the quiet groves of Greece, in the snowy peaks of the Himalayas, and in the heart of the Galilean countryside. It is a single, universal truth about the nature of reality and our place within it, spoken in 1,000 different tongues. The true question, then, is not whether the law of assumption works. The question that holds the key to its sacred power is this: is the law of assumption a part of this golden thread? To answer that, we must first understand a fundamental secret known to every mystic and sage. Nearly all great traditions possess two layers, two expressions of their truth. The first is the exoteric. This is the outer shell, the rules, the laws, the public rituals and stories. It is designed for the community, to provide structure, moral guidance, and a shared identity. It is beautiful and necessary, but it is not the source of power. Beneath that lies the esoteric. This is the living heart of the tradition. It is not concerned with belief, but with direct personal experience. The esoteric path is for the seeker who is no longer content to be told about the divine, but who wishes to know it, to feel it, to experience it as the very ground of their own being. And it is here, in the esoteric heart of every great path, that the secrets of creation are revealed. This journey we are on today is not an examination of the outer shell. It is a map, a guide into the esoteric core. We will look beyond the dogma and the doctrines to find the raw, experiential instructions left behind by the greatest masters of consciousness. For it is here that we will find our golden thread. Of all the revolutionary statements made by the mystic known as Jesus, perhaps the most profound and the most overlooked is this simple declaration: the kingdom of God is within you. For centuries, this has been interpreted as a poetic promise of a future afterlife, a heavenly realm one enters after death. But the esoteric tradition, the path of the mystic, hears these words not as a promise for tomorrow, but as a statement of fact about the nature of reality right now. The kingdom is not a destination. It is a technology. It is the very faculty of creation, the workshop of consciousness where the blueprint of your reality is drawn. Consider this. Think of your imagination not as a frivolous faculty for idle daydreams, but as a quantum reality simulator. Before any great architect can build a temple in the outer world, they must first construct it perfectly, stone by stone, in the inner world of their mind. They must walk its halls, feel its atmosphere, and know it to be complete within themselves before a single shovel breaks the ground. The inner creation is the cause, the outer manifestation is the effect. The kingdom, Jesus taught, is this inner temple. It is the simulator where you first render the reality you wish to experience. What you hold as true in this kingdom, what you accept and feel as real within its sacred space, has no choice but to project itself onto the screen of your physical world. This was not a fringe idea. This was the central secret of the early Christian mystics, particularly those we now call the Gnostics. The word gnosis itself means direct experiential knowledge. For them, salvation was not achieved through blind faith in an external savior, but through the awakening of the divine spark, the Christ consciousness, that resided within every human soul. When they read the scriptures, they saw not just a story about a man who lived 2,000 years ago, but a coded manual for their own spiritual awakening. The life of Christ was a map of the soul's journey from slumber to mastery, a journey into the creative power of the kingdom within. And this ancient wisdom is now being rediscovered in the language of our modern world. Psychology and neuroscience are beginning to map the very territory these mystics explored. They speak of a state called the imaginal space. In this state, the human brain and nervous system become so immersed in a vividly imagined reality that they cease to distinguish it from physical reality. The body begins to release the same chemicals, the brain rewires its neural pathways, and the entire human organism begins to operate from the truth of that imagined state. High-performance athletes, master musicians, and groundbreaking innovators use this principle, whether they call it that or not. They live in the triumphant result in their inner world, long before it becomes visible to others. The ancient mystics were simply the ultimate masters of this sacred technology of the soul. And so, we arrive at the threshold. We have located the kingdom. We understand its power as a creative simulator. The question that remains is the most vital one. If the kingdom is our consciousness, what was the password that Jesus gave us to activate it? The answer lies in the two most misunderstood words in the Bible. So, if the kingdom is the inner technology of consciousness, what is the password Jesus provided to activate it? The answer lies in the two most powerful and perhaps most tragically misinterpreted words in all of Western scripture: I am. When we hear the phrase, I am the way, the truth, and the life, the exoteric or outer tradition has taught us to see this as a statement of exclusive identity, that a single man, Jesus of Nazareth, is the sole pathway to God. But the esoteric tradition, the path of the mystic, hears something entirely different. It hears not a declaration of identity, but a universal instruction manual. The Greek phrase is ego eimi, I am. This is not just a casual statement of existence. In the mystical context, this is a declaration of the creative power itself. The great secret that Neville Goddard brought to modern awareness, a secret he learned from his own teacher Abdullah, is that I am is the name of God. It is the name of pure, unconditioned awareness. It is the formless clay from which all realities are molded. Whatever you place after the words, I am, is the form into which you are shaping that divine clay. I am tired. I am lonely. I am struggling. The creative power of the universe dutifully and without judgment accepts this as your command and molds your reality to reflect it. Now, listen to the Master's instruction again with these new ears. I am the way. The instruction is not to follow a man, but to realize that your own consciousness of being, your I amness, is the one and only way to any desired state. I am the truth. The truth is not a set of facts, but the reality you consent to by feeling it, by assuming it in your imagination. I am the life. The life is not mere biological existence, but the feeling, the vibration, the inner conviction of that assumption being real. This understanding completely transforms the concept of faith. Faith ceases to be a blind belief in a person or a doctrine outside of yourself. It becomes an unwavering fidelity to the reality you have assumed within yourself. You are not asked to believe in Jesus. You are being invited to believe like him, to use the creative principle of I am with the same authority and conviction that he did. And lest you think this is a modern reinterpretation, Jesus provides the exact technical manual for this practice. In the book of Mark, he gives this crystal clear instruction. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Listen to the tense of that verb. It is the entire secret. It does not say, believe you will receive. That is hope. Hope is a beautiful thing, but it lives in the future, and it implicitly admits that you do not have your desire now. Hope is a confession of lack. The instruction is to believe that you have received. Past tense, it is done. It is a fact in the only place reality is first constructed. Your consciousness. This is not a poetic suggestion to be optimistic. This is a direct technical command. The prayer is not the act of asking. The true effective prayer is the act of assuming the feeling of the wish already fulfilled. And this sacred password, this primordial formula of creation, did not begin in the New Testament. To find its origin, we must travel back in time to one of the foundational moments of Western spirituality. We must go to the story of Moses at the burning bush. When Moses, standing before this formless divine presence, asks for its name, what is the name of the ultimate power of the universe? The answer he receives is not a noun. It is not a title. The answer is a formula. I am that I am. In Hebrew, Ehya Asher Ehya. The most ancient and sacred definition of God is pure, unconditioned being. It is the power that is aware of its own existence. Jesus did not invent this principle. He inherited it, he mastered it, and he taught it to anyone with ears to hear. But this radical idea, this secret that consciousness becomes whatever it attaches itself to, was not a revelation confined to the desert sands of the Middle East. Across the world, in the quiet ashrams and deep forests of India, sages and rishis had charted the very same territory. They had arrived at the exact same conclusion, though they used a completely different language to describe it. This same radical principle, that consciousness is the one and only creator, did not echo only in the arid landscapes of the Middle East. It was, in fact, the very bedrock of reality for the sages and rishis who sat in deep meditation along the banks of the Ganges River in ancient India. Have you ever had the feeling that you are a character on a stage, a player in a story, whose script you did not write? You react to the plot, you navigate the challenges, you hope for a happy ending, but you feel fundamentally subject to the whims of an unseen author. This feeling of being a separate, limited self, tossed about on the waves of fate, is the default human experience, and according to the sages of the Upanishads, it is the result of a profound cosmic misunderstanding of who you truly are. To grasp their teaching, we must set aside the common metaphor of being a drop in the ocean. Instead, let us use a metaphor that is far more intimate, far more revealing, the metaphor of the dreamer and the dream. Right now, you perceive yourself as a character within the dream of life. You have a name, a history, a body. You are subject to the laws of this dream, the laws of physics, of society, of time. From the perspective of this dream character, you are small, vulnerable, and fundamentally separate from the world you see around you. But the great realization of Advaita Vedanta, the path of non-duality, asks you to consider a possibility that is at once terrifying and exhilarating. What if you are not the character in the dream? What if you are the dreamer? Imagine this. The dreamer is the silent, formless consciousness that is projecting the entire reality. The dreamer is dreaming the character you think you are. But the dreamer is also dreaming the room you are in, the air you are breathing, the other people you will meet today, and the very fabric of the plot you are experiencing. All of it is a projection, a magnificent and intricate play of light and shadow happening within the boundless mind of the one dreamer. This dreamer, this one universal consciousness, they called Brahman. And with this shift in identity, the law of assumption ceases to be a technique for a character to get what it wants. It becomes the inherent, natural, and effortless ability of the dreamer to change the direction of the dream. You do not try to attract a desired outcome to your character. That is the hard way, the way of struggle. Instead, you, as the dreamer, simply decide on a new scene, a new feeling, a new reality, and you begin to dream that into existence. You change the dream from the inside out, from the level of the cause, not the effect. This brings us to the often misunderstood concept of Maya. We are told Maya means illusion, which makes us think the world is not real. A more accurate translation of Maya is divine art, or the power of projection. The world is not unreal, any more than a movie projected onto a screen is unreal. The images on the screen are real projections of light, but the source of the movie is not on the screen itself. It is in the film running through the projector. Maya is the projected film of reality. Brahman, the dreamer, is the light and the projector. To change the movie, you do not argue with the shadows on the screen. You must change the real in the projector. Your consciousness, your assumption, is the real you choose to play. This is not just abstract philosophy. It is the cosmological heart of Hindu mythology. It is said that the great god Vishnu sleeps on the cosmic ocean, and from his dream, all of universes are born, live, and die. We are characters, events, and entire galaxies unfolding in the mind of a dreaming god. Our own consciousness is a fractal, a tiny sliver of that same dreaming power. The entire spiritual path, then, is a process of remembering. We are like gods who have fallen asleep and forgotten that we are dreaming. We have become so identified with the limited dream character that we have forgotten our own infinite power as the dreamer. So, if reality is a dream projected by consciousness, and we are that consciousness, how can we awaken just enough to consciously influence the dream, without shattering the beautiful rules of the game? So, if the great traditions of the East and West agree that our consciousness is the ultimate cause, the dreamer of the dream, this raises a deeply practical question. How do we, as the character in the dream, begin to access the power of the dreamer? The answer comes to us not through grand cosmology, but through the intensely practical and disciplined paths of the Buddha and the Stoic philosophers. They provide the tools. They teach us how to use the chisel of the mind to sculpt our inner world. The Buddha's teaching can be distilled into one of the most powerful statements ever made about human consciousness, from the opening verses of the Dhammapada. We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. This is not a simple call for positive thinking. This is a radical declaration about the mechanics of reality. Your world, the one you subjectively experience, is not a fixed, objective place. It is a direct reflection, a mirror image, of the sum total of your thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions. The reality you inhabit is a story, and you are the narrator. If the story you are telling yourself is one of lack, struggle, and fear, then that is the world your senses will be tuned to perceive. You will find evidence for that story everywhere. To change your world, you must first change the story you are telling. Thousands of miles away, in the bustling marketplaces and quiet porticos of ancient Greece and Rome, the Stoic philosophers arrived at the exact same operational conclusion. The great Stoic teacher Epictetus, a man who was born a slave and rose to become one of the most respected thinkers of his time, taught this core principle. It is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about events. The external world to the Stoic is neutral. Events are simply events. They have no inherent meaning. It is our internal assent, our judgment, our assumption about the event, that gives it its power to create joy or suffering within us. The law of assumption, viewed through the Stoic lens, is the ultimate act of mental discipline. It is the practice of proactively choosing your judgment before the world presents you with the evidence. You do not wait to see if you are successful to feel successful. You assume the inner state of success first, and by doing so, you command your world to reflect that judgment back to you. You are seizing control of the one thing you have absolute power over, your own mind. And this ancient spiritual technology is not some forgotten relic of the past. It is, in fact, the bedrock of some of the most effective and evidence-based psychological therapies in use today. The founders of both cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and rational emotive behavior therapy, men like Aaron Beck and Albert Ellis, openly admitted that they drew their core inspiration directly from the writings of the Stoic philosophers. They rediscovered that the most powerful way to heal human suffering is to teach people how to identify, challenge, and change their underlying beliefs and assumptions about themselves and the world. What our modern world calls therapy, the ancients called wisdom. But here, a vital question arises. The mind can be a powerful architect. The disciplined thought can be a fine chisel, but both can be cold, logical, and sterile. A blueprint, no matter how perfect, lacks life. A perfectly sculpted statue, no matter how beautiful, lacks a heartbeat. What about the fire of creation? What about passion? What about the heart? For that missing piece, we must turn from the monk and the philosopher to the poet and the lover. We must turn to a Persian mystic who revealed the ultimate secret of union. While the mind provides the structure, it is the heart that provides the fire. While a philosopher may give you a perfect blueprint for reality, only a poet can teach you how to breathe life into it. This is where our journey takes us into the ecstatic, passionate world of Sufism, the mystical heart of Islam, as expressed through its most famous voice, the 13th century Persian poet, Rumi. For the Sufi, the relationship with the divine is not that of a servant to a king or a student to a teacher. It is the passionate, all-consuming relationship of the lover and the beloved. God is the beloved, the ultimate object of all our soul's yearning. And we are the lover, forever seeking to dissolve the illusion of separation and merge back into the arms of the one we love. From this perspective, the law of assumption is transformed. It is no longer a mental technique of, I think, therefore I am. It becomes an act of ecstatic union. The goal is not to attract what you desire, because that very act implies separation. It reinforces the painful illusion that you and your desire are two different things. For Rumi, the secret was to become your desire. To so completely fall in love with the feeling of your wish fulfilled that the space between you and it collapses. The lover and the beloved become one. This is the meaning behind the famous Sufi concept of fana, which is often translated as annihilation. It is not the annihilation of the body or the soul. It is the annihilation of the small, separate self, the ego that believes it is apart from the beloved, apart from its desire. You must annihilate the version of you that is not in possession of your desire, so that only the version of you that is remains. The feeling is the language of this union. The sustained feeling of your wish fulfilled is the sacred space where the lover and the beloved finally merge. And the Sufis developed their own powerful spiritual technologies to achieve this state. One of the most central is the practice of dhikr, which means remembrance. This is often a rhythmic, repetitive chanting of the names of God, or sacred phrases done for hours. From the outside, it may look like simple repetition, but from the inside, it is a profound act of alchemy. The seeker repeats the sacred sound until the sound is no longer something they are doing, but something they are. The ego, the chattering mind, dissolves in the vibration of the divine name. They are literally remembering their true nature as one with the beloved. Now compare this ancient practice to the modern instruction to repeat an affirmation. When Neville Goddard instructs you to repeat a short phrase like "it is done" until you are saturated with its feeling, he is teaching a form of dhikr. You are not just saying words. You are using the words as a tool to dissolve your old identity and to remember, to embody, to become the new one. The feeling is the secret, because the feeling is the evidence of the union. It is the proof that the lover and the beloved are no longer two, but one. And so, we have followed the golden thread. We have seen the same universal law wearing the robes of a Galilean king, the simple cloth of an Indian dreamer, the stoic armor of a Roman philosopher, and the ecstatic dance of a Persian lover. The masks are different, but the face behind them is the same. What happens now when all the masks are finally removed? We have followed the golden thread across continents and through centuries. We have walked with sages and mystics, with philosophers and poets, and now we arrive at the very heart of the mystery. We have seen the one universal law wearing the majestic robes of a Galilean king, the cosmic form of an Indian dreamer, the disciplined armor of a Roman philosopher, and the ecstatic fire of a Persian lover. The time has come to ask the final question. What is the true face behind all of these sacred masks? What is the single operational power that these great traditions were all pointing towards, each in their own beautiful, holy language? The answer is at once the grandest cosmic truth and the most intimate personal secret. The power they spoke of is not a god in a distant heaven. It is not an impersonal cosmic force. It is the closest, most immediate, and most profoundly overlooked reality of your entire existence. It is your own and your wonderful human consciousness. That is the great secret. The kingdom of God, Brahman the dreamer, the enlightened mind of the Buddha, the inner citadel of the Stoic, the beloved of the Sufi. These are not different destinations. They are different names, different metaphors for the same sacred ground, your own awareness, your ability to be conscious of being. And the phrase we use today, the law of assumption, is nothing more than our modern psychological label for this ancient holy mechanism. It is not a New Age invention. It is the rediscovery of the fundamental operating system of reality itself. And here is the revelation that can dissolve the conflict in your heart. You do not have to abandon your faith to embrace your power. In fact, your faith can become the most powerful vehicle for it. You do not have to believe in the words of Neville Goddard. You can believe in the words of Jesus. You can feel your prayer is already answered with the unshakable faith of a true Christian mystic. You can know yourself to be the silent dreamer of your reality with the profound certainty of a Vedantic sage. You can hold your mind in the unwavering discipline of a Stoic philosopher, knowing that nothing external can move you. You can assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled with the all-consuming passion of a Sufi lover finally uniting with the beloved. The law is one. The methods, the names, the languages are many. The power has always been yours. The only question was how you would choose to name it and how you would choose, finally, to wield it. So, we arrive at the most important part of our journey. We have untangled the theory. We have traced the golden thread. But wisdom without practice is merely a beautiful, lifeless ornament. How do we take this profound, universal truth and make it a living, breathing reality in our own lives? The reason so many people struggle with this law is because they try to make an impossible leap. They are standing in what we will call reality A, a reality where they feel lack, loneliness, or limitation. And they try to jump in a single bound to reality Z, where their grandest desire is fulfilled. The chasm between these two states feels too vast. The logical mind rebels, skepticism floods in, and the feeling of the wish fulfilled feels like a lie, a form of self-deception, and so they fall back into reality A. The secret, the true art of this work, is not to make one giant leap. It is to take one small, believable, and powerful step. We are not going to jump to reality Z. Instead, we are going to create and inhabit what we will call a subsidiary reality, a reality B. This is a small, simple, and utterly mundane reality that serves as a bridge. It is a reality that, by its very nature, implies that the grander desire of reality Z has already come to pass. Here is the ritual. It is simple, it is practical, and it is profoundly potent. First, you must define your scene. Choose one short, simple, everyday action that would only happen after your main desire has been fulfilled. This is crucial. You are not going to visualize the big event itself, winning the lottery, the wedding day, the moment you get the promotion. That is too big, too emotionally charged. You must choose a small, after-the-fact scene. Let me give you an example. If your desire is to be a published author, your scene is not the moment you sign the contract. Your subsidiary reality scene might be you, sitting at your kitchen table, replying to a mundane email from your editor about a minor typo on page 87. Feel the difference? It is normal. It is believable. Yet it can only happen if the main desire is already a fact. Second, you must consecrate the time and space. Every night, just before you fall asleep in that drowsy, magical state between waking and dreaming, go to the same quiet place. This is not a casual daydream. This is sacred work. You are entering the Holy of Holies, the workshop of creation. Treat it as such. For 5 minutes, you will close the doors to the world of your problems and enter the world of your solution. Third, you must enter the scene, and you must enter it in the first person. Do not watch yourself on a screen. Be the one doing the action. Feel the keys of your laptop under your fingertips as you type that email. See the specific words on the screen. Feel the quiet, calm satisfaction of dealing with a normal, everyday work task. Hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the background. Involve as many of your senses as you can. You are not visualizing a future. You are inhabiting a present reality. And finally, and this is the key to it all, when your 5 minutes are up, you must thank the reality for being so, and then completely and utterly let it go. You do not carry it with you, anxiously checking the outer world to see if it's working. You have visited a place that is already real in the only dimension that matters. You have watered the seed. Now you must allow it to grow in the darkness in its own time. You have performed the ritual. You have entered the subsidiary reality, and by doing so, you have sent a clear, undeniable signal to the universe that you are no longer the person in reality A. You are now the person who lives in a world where reality B is normal, and the rest will follow. And so, we arrive at the end of our journey, only to find ourselves standing at the true beginning. We have seen that the most profound truth of the universe is not locked away in ancient, dusty books or guarded by robed figures in distant temples. That truth is alive. It is a living, breathing, creative force, and its temple is your own consciousness. The sacred texts are not the final word. They are simply the maps, the guidebooks, left behind by the courageous explorers who charted this inner territory before us. They all point to the same destination, the realization that the universal creative power of which they spoke is not something you seek, but something you are. The great traditions are not meant to be worshipped as static monuments to the past. They are meant to be lived. You are the living tradition. Your life is the ceremony. Your assumptions are the prayers. Your feelings are the offerings. So, as we part ways, I leave you with this thought. The 13th century mystic and poet Rumi once wrote, "Stop acting so small. You are the universe in ecstatic motion." Tonight, as your head touches the pillow, in that sacred moment before sleep, Do not ask the universe for a better future. That is the old way. That is the prayer of the dream character. Instead, remember who you truly are. You are the consciousness that dreams this world into being. And from that place of quiet authority, from that center of creative power, simply give your dream a new and beautiful direction in which to unfold.